1.1 Before the 1870s, European presence in Africa was mostly limited to coastal trade, but that changed fast. Advances in medicine and transportation made interior Africa more accessible. Missionaries like David Livingstone and explorers like Henry Morton Stanley paved the way for deeper European involvement. Stanley was hired by King Leopold II of Belgium to sign treaties in Congo Basin. This move alarmed other European powers seeking a race to claim land. At the Berlin Conference 1884 to 1885, Europe carved up Africa with rulers and maps, ignoring African cultures, languages, and borders. This was for many reasons, strategic and economic reasons. Britain wanted to secure the Suez Canal and mineral-rich areas. National prestige. France sought to recover from defeat in Franco-Prussian War. Business interests. Belgium's rubber, Portugal's revival of former claims, Germany's entry into the race and prestige and profit. By 1900, over 90% of Africa was under European control. European powers often claimed they were bringing progress, and to some extent they did. They introduced administrative governments, Western-style education, roads, railways, telegraph systems, water, sanitation, and medical care, and new crops like maize, cassava, and cotton. But this came at a devastating cost. European borders disregarded African tribal, ethnic, and linguistic lines. Territories were drawn based on European convenience, not African reality. Resistance was punished harshly. Chief Mkawa of the Hihi tribe, he was beheaded by Germans for resisting colonial rule. In German Southwest Africa, the Herero Nama peoples were driven into the desert, many dying of thirst. Some claiming German soldiers poisoned their wells. Colonial rule often meant indirect control, like Britain and Northern Nigeria, using local chiefs. Other powers, like France and Germany, imposed direct rule, with Europeans at the top of the hierarchy. This power structure was undermined by racism. Staley once wrote, "It is necessary to regard them Africans as children." Traditional African ways of life eroded under European rule. Cultures, economic, and identities were upended. Land ownership shifted to Europeans. African Africans became cheap for labor colonial projects. Resources were stripped: gold, diamonds, copper, rubber, and ivory, fueling European industrialization. One of the most brutal cases, Leopold II's Congo, where forced laborers were mutilated or killed for failing rubber quotas. The cost of progress was human suffering, cultural loss, and economic dependency. Back in Europe, imperialism wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated. Britain. With the largest empire, Britain used education, media, and pop culture to promote imperial pride. Schools taught loyalty to the empire. Newspapers like Daily Mail, owned by imperialist Lord Northcliffe, told tales of British heroes, civilizing barbaric lands. Novels like Kim by Rudyard Kipling justified imperial rule in India. Britain claimed a moral duty to end slavery and spread civilization, what Kipling famously called the white man's burden. France. After their defeat in 1871, France imperialized to rebuild its pride. The government launched the civilizing mission. Schools taught that France had a right and duty to spread its culture. Publications like La Croix praised France's imperial rule. The government and business promoted the economic benefits of the empire, new markets, raw materials, and glory. Politicians like Jules Ferry said superior rights have a races have a right because they only have a duty to civilize inferior races. Germany, a unified Germany, entered into the game late because of the pressure from German businessmen and a fuel to a sense of national unity. Germany began its colonial push. The colonial society and Navy League boasted public enthusiasm. Missionaries laid the groundwork for territorial control. Postcards, newspapers, and political cartoons portrayed Germany's civilizing mission, nationalism, and economic motives. They blended to create a public backing. Not everyone, not everyone in Europe supported imperialism. Writers, economics, and religious leaders pushed back on moral, economic, and political grounds. Jo- John Hobson, a British economist, argued in Imperialism, a study in 1902, that the empire was unprofitable and served only the elite. Hobson pointed out the empire raised tensions with rivals. War like the Boer War were costly and immoral, and resources used abroad could have been spent on domestic reform. Groups like the Stop War Community in Britain protested the empire's cruelty, but despite opposition, the majority of media, politicians, and public videos supported imperialism, at least on the surface. The scramble for Africa was a defining moment in world history. Europe redrew Africa's map, imposed new systems, and left scars that will still shape the continent today. For some, it was the golden age of an empire. For others, a legacy of exploitation and trauma. Either way, it's a past we must understand to fully grasp our present.